Hi, Sosa. Can you hear me? Good morning.
Good morning.
It's a pleasure to have you here. Um, I'd like to know if you can hear me.
Yes, I can, and I'll be turning on my video in a minute. Uh,
Perfect.
I can
Perfect. We'll be going live in the next 1 minute. Well, actually live, but we'll start officially in the next 1 minute by 10 a.m. prompt.
Okay.
So that we could cover everything we need to in the next hour.
Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, can you see me? Can you hear me? It seems I'm no
Yes, I
more
can hear
here.
you now. I can hear you. Welcome to today's meeting. It's so
Thank
good to
you.
see you on a Saturday morning. I know you have tons of things to do. So I'm so glad that you took your time to be here. A lot of people are looking forward to hearing from you. And I'm delighted that you're able to pull out this 1 hour from your very busy schedule.
Thank you so
So I
much.
think we
Thank you
should
for having
dive, yes, we should dive straight in to have the discussion. And maybe because I know you personally, I feel like it's going to be a very, very interesting and engaging session. The topic, I picked the topic because I feel like, yes, you were in a very good place to respond to and treat that topic. And
right.
because a lot of what we're in a society where there's a lot of problems, there is a lot of problems, and it's very easy to keep stating the problems. Seeing that May was actually a mental health awareness month, and it still is. A lot of people have been talking about mental health, and most of the time people keep saying, "Oh, it's Nigeria. Our mental health cannot be all right," blah blah blah, with all the troubles in Africa and all the pressure and all the stress. And yeah, well, they're maybe correct at it, there's still a part of where we are responsible for what is happening in our country. Of course, we have leadership, but there's a lot of problem solving that if we master, we could actually help each other have a better life. And
Yeah.
it's the purpose of having this forum in the first place, to help people become better in their jobs, better in their solutions, in their innovations, and have global competitive solutions. And I'm so glad to have you here to talk about mastering problem solving,
Yeah.
as a topic. So I'll do a little bit of introduction of you, for people who are joining us so that they can have a better view of who they are speaking with. So we have here today, we have all the pleasure to have with us Esosa. I'm not going to pronounce his surname because I'm not sure I'm very good at it. So Esosa is a business consultant. He has been doing business optimization and strategy management for years, and he has had a very robust career. He still has one. He's worked as the EcoBank. It's worked at EcoBank Global Group. That's the bank, but it's more than a bank, I believe. And then he was there for quite a number of years, and he left there as the chief of staff, if I can remember. Yeah. And right now he's had the BCG, that's the Boston Consulting Group. That's what it is, yeah. As a business, as a consultant, senior consultant. And well, I don't know, I'm not in that space, but I think it's a lot of work as how you guys handle very, very big projects and always analyze troubles and provide solutions. So here we are having you talk about this and the fact that you are an entrepreneur by heart and someone who actually have a lot of ideas in their mind that you're trying to pull out. I think is a perfect place to have you on this topic. So next 30, 40 minutes, the floor is yours to take us through this topic and glean us all the insights that you like us to have. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure to be here. This is a platform that each time I see the videos come up on YouTube, I'm always, very, very encouraged and strengthened. And the reason for that is because I see a lot of young people that God, and I believe the world is really, really looking up to for changes, looking up to for ideas, looking up to for breakthroughs, and many of them have come on this platform. So I think this is a big opportunity, and I'd like to appreciate you for that. Yeah, so getting into it, let me first give a context. I have two screens, so you see my eyes moving between both. I have two screens open. I think it's interesting you mentioned the mental health context, right? Because there's a lot going on in the human mind. In our Nigeria context, for example, there's just a lot a man has to deal with, right? Today, the economy is, you're hearing dollars going like this. Tomorrow, you're hearing, there's this new tax. And it's just such a dynamic world that at the same time, your job and many of the things you are used to, they are not changing. Your bills are increasing, but so-called your income is not changing. And so fundamentally in every human being, there is that need to always advance, right? Always grow. Most times when you check a company and you check the most frustrated people, you tend to find that there are those who have been on the level for the longest. I remember when I joined the bank, there were so many people who kept, we were new young trainees then at the time, and there were just people trying to dissuade us. You get stuck, leave this place when you can. And I realized that there are the people somehow the system had beaten. Now, here's the thing. Does life happen to people or do people happen to life? One of the biggest arguments you hear a lot. So like the case I gave, people who the system had dealt with, was it their fault that they were in the same place for 10 years, same level for 10 years? Or was it the system's fault? Over time, I've come to realize that a system may be bad, but certain things are undeniable advantages for any person in a career. Number one of it is problem solving. The fundamental rule of value in life is people are looking for those who will solve problems for them that they cannot solve for themselves. I'll give a classic example. Even when we consider wealth transfer today, everything you spend your money on today are things that you cannot do for yourself. Right? So a classic example, you want a beautiful suit, you want a wonderful dress, right? You can't make it. You're not a tailor. That's a problem you have. You want to look good, but you can't make clothes by yourself. So you part ways with a boutique or with a tailor to get a fine dress. The tailor is solving a problem for you that you cannot solve for yourself. Another example is your phone. You want to communicate. You have family members, you have colleagues you need to communicate with. You cannot make a phone. So you part ways with your money. You part ways with your money to Samsung, and you get a phone from Samsung. Every career and even every job is looking for someone who can solve problems. Check the biggest billionaires today in the world. They have solved problems the world didn't even know they have. Is there any company today that doesn't have computers? You know, when Microsoft was, I mean, when Windows, or I don't know, I think Microsoft is the company, yes. When Microsoft was building, you know, the operating system for computers, they may not have imagined the impact it would have had. But today, they solved the problem they didn't even know the world had. Just last week, someone was telling me something about how consulting was before computers came. They had to draw, you know, slides on paper and then send it to some designer. It was a very hectic life. But Bill Gates solved all that problem. And we can see the world rewarded him for it. A very young man at the age of 20 or 25, I can't remember, was already a millionaire. And I think by 30, was already a billionaire. Same thing with Steve Jobs and Apple. Same thing with Amazon and Jeff Bezos. And of recent, same thing with Elon Musk. Elon Musk has solved a problem we didn't know we had, electric vehicles. He solved space travel. In fact, that was not even possible. I don't know if you guys are getting what I'm saying. Even before Tesla, Elon Musk's company became profitable, he was already the most valued car company. A loss-making company was the most valued. Investors were pouring in daily because they saw a man solving a problem that was transformational. It's the same thing with our careers. I haven't worked as a chief of staff. I can tell you, fundamental reason a CEO who is very intelligent needs a chief of staff is because he needs someone to solve problems for him that he cannot solve for himself. And that's kind of how my journey to where I am today started, right? By the way, let me say something very quickly about wealth transfer. And this is quite, whether wealth, we call it wealth, money, your salary is an example of wealth transfer. It's your company giving you, paying you for it. Any source of income that does not follow this principle will eventually become sustainable. This is the problem today we have with politicians, Yahoo boys, you know, illicit activities. Even inheritance, when the person is not fundamentally solving a problem, inheritance will eventually fade away. And this is the fundamental principle of life, that if your earnings, if your career is to grow, then you must be doing things that normal people cannot do. You must be solving problems that normal people cannot do. Now, another principle that is a child of this is that the more complex the problem, the bigger the reward. You know, as a child, I asked my father a very interesting question. I asked him one day that, how come you sit in AC, you know, in your big office, signing papers, you are earning more than the guy at the gate who is under the sun? I was a child then. I remember I just realized that the guy cutting the grass and at the gate is doing harder labor than my dad who was sitting in the office signing papers. And I will never forget his answer. He said, if they were to swap me and the security guard, I can easily do his job, but he cannot easily do my job. Even as a child, I think I was 8 at the time, I clearly understood this principle. The more rare and valuable what you can do is, the more people are willing to pay for it. You know, a classic example of this is by the time, I'll give a personal example. Let me share some high level. You know, when Bill Gates learned coding, at the time he was learning it, it's not as popular today that you have coding everywhere. Coding was extremely rare. It was only high-paid scientists in IBM labs that could do it. But this young man had a passion and he pursued it intensely. To the point that he knew how to code so effortlessly. Each time he would see a problem, he would think of how to create a code to solve it. And that is the backbone of everything Microsoft became. He had a skill that no one else had. The same thing with Steve Jobs. And these are heroes of the tech world. So, you know, their names come up a lot. Steve Jobs was a design master. He had a skill at picking, would I say, the deepest need of the human heart. I remember I was watching one of his employees, you know, talk about him. They mentioned how Steve Jobs, you know, they had created the Mac at the time, but Steve Jobs wasn't satisfied. He had this inner feeling that we shouldn't be able to use a keyboard to control a computer. We need to be able to directly interface with it. And we know where that ended up with the iPhone. The iPhone revolutionized the world as we know it today. In fact, most of what we now know as Android, many of these things were just offshoots of the iPhone. Rare and valuable. What I'm saying now, let me give another example of a skill that most people run away from: public speaking. Public speaking is a skill that I believe has kept many professionals at the bottom. So you see people who are very good with their technical ability, but they struggle to communicate it. When they start talking, you feel sleepy. Meanwhile, I've met people who know nothing, but they are master communicators. They've mastered that skill to the point that you just love hearing them speak. I don't know if we are following what I'm saying. They've mastered that problem that when companies are thinking, who do we send when we want to close deals? They're not thinking of the technical guy who can build software but cannot communicate. They are thinking of the guy who will talk and almost make you, you know, exchange your pocket. And those guys tend to end up earning more than the technical guy who will end up doing the work, because it's a rare and valuable skill. And so here is how we think about problem solving. Now, I can get into many of the, would I say, technicalities about, you know, to be a problem solver, you need to use this framework and use that framework. Over time, I've learned that is not, that those things help structure your thinking, but the largest part of this comes from your ability to develop unique skills. So my journey. Today, I serve as a management consultant with Boston Consulting Group. And if you know consultants, what we basically do is solve complex problems for our clients, right? So there are things, there are problems that just look so enormous. Maybe a company has tried multiple times, they can't get to the root of it. And they just need an external voice to tell them how to go about it. They call consultants. Mind you, all we do and everything has always been, it's always new to us. We may have experience doing it over and over again, but a traditional consultant is as new to the problem as someone they just employed. I'm not, for example, I did banking before I came to consulting, but as it is today, I've not done banking. I've not done a single banking case. I've done one, but it was not about core banking, it was about, you know, organizational transformation. I've not even done one. I've been facing industries I've never worked in and I've never known. But what I learned during my time in the bank are many of the things, the fundamental skills that people run away from. Things like communication, things like being able to structure problems and think of it in a structured way. Those are the things that I have transferred to my job, strengthened, and that no matter the industry you put me today, I will tell you what the problem is. But what's my journey to this point? I started like every other trainee. And they teach you everything generic about banking, about the company, about understanding financial statements, here and there. But I remember there was this coach or mentor I had then was always pushing me to greater heights, learn something new. So on my own, I started learning some skills around PowerPoint presentation, like creating it. And I don't just mean creating slides, I mean creating excellent slides. And then, not only that, I was learning some skills around data analytics. This was on my own, right? I was just learning it. There's something that I've heard people say a lot. I believe is really true. When they say when opportunity meets preparation, then I think an encounter is born or something like that. And it's really true because I have been developing these rare and valuable skills that many of my colleagues didn't have. And then by a remarkable turn of events, I was called for a program, right? I was selected to, among the trainees to go for a program. We didn't know, but it was actually the board meeting. I don't know where the idea came to those who organizing the board meeting, but they said they wanted some trainees to come to that board meeting, like ushers. And so, as destiny will have it, I was sitting opposite the incoming MT. So we got talking. He was trying to understand what the things happening in the system. Remember, he's incoming. He doesn't know anybody. So he's trying to know people, right? And I was just sharing my perspective, sharing my answers, sharing some of the things I had learned just from playing around. I remember on a Monday, he took my number, we exchanged numbers. On a Monday, I got a call from him that, he needs to do one or two things. I should quickly help him put it on the slide. Remember, by this time, I'd already mastered it. I'd already mastered analytics. So I did the analysis, I put it on the slide, I presented it well. He was so blown away by it because his expectation was, this is the standard I get from like consultants, right? He noted it. When it was time for our final placement, he brought me into the role as directly chief of staff. Like my career has been really, really amazing because I moved from trainee, I didn't work in any place, I went straight to chief of staff. Like I jumped over so many levels. Now, the reason he picked me, if we even think of this in a broader view, is not because he liked me. Even I had people in the bank coming to ask me, did he know me before? No, he saw someone who could solve a problem he could not solve for himself. Till I left the bank, all the strategy documents, all the reports, I did all those things. All his speeches, all his management of the office, project execution. All of this I kept doing for him because I applied myself to build rare and valuable skills. Now, it didn't stop there. The more I was on that road, the more I realized one day that my opportunity to learn this industry, banking, is equal to the CEO because I literally see everything he sees. So it's almost like I'm learning to be a CEO without the risk of being a CEO. It dawned on me one day very clearly. And so I told myself I will apply myself to all the projects as much as I could. So there was no project going on in the bank that I would not sit in, contribute, ideate, structure. I was always there. Organizational transformation, I was there. We had a project on IT, deploying IT systems, I was there. When we had product reviews, in fact, that's my greatest love. I was there. Product design, I was there. By the time I was leaving the bank and by the time I moved to consulting, it became clear to me, like by the time I'm not engaging conversations, even up until yesterday, people were consulting me for something in the office. It dawned on me that I had become so vast and knowledgeable. Oh, sorry, I skipped a step in my story. Anyways, just sorry, a quick step. I was about to leave the bank at some point. I got an offer in another bank as head of strategy, but I was not clear. The bank became so, the bank, the CEO and everyone, they became so jittery, for lack of a better word, that they called me back. And when they called me back, they now had the realization that they could have given me that role within the bank. And that was what happened. Because they dawned on them that I was already doing the functions that someone else wanted to employ me for. They could just give me the role. And so a new role was set up for me around transformation, right? Strategy and transformation. A whole new role. All I'm telling you now is that the more valuable your skills are, the more people will definitely call you. In fact, I'm an ardent of favor. I'm an ardent of supernatural help. But I realized that many times, the way God will structure favor is to actually give you something that no one else can easily do. In fact, and just to quote, I'm a Christian, just to quote something from my holy book, it actually says, a man that is skillful in his work will stand before kings. It is true that God gives favor, but the way he gives favor is by actually giving you skills that you are solving problems that people cannot easily solve. This was what happened with many people in that same book, like Joseph and Daniel. And so that was kind of my story as well. By the time I had the role, I was responsible for managing the bank strategy and many other things. It was this experience that then made my current company come for me and request for me. So you see, it has been a journey of having something rare and valuable that would always set you apart. I learned so much on projects when I was there. I learned so much on engagement. I learned so much working that now when you talk to me about banking or even most industries, because banking relates to many industries, I have a very broad view of what the problems may be. And this brings me to how we develop these problem-solving skills. Just to test, has the audio been fine so far? Has everything been fine?
It's
Video,
been
audio.
fantastic. It's been good. It's fine.
Okay. So how do we develop real valuable skills? Again, let me recap. You're as valuable as what the skills you have. You're as valuable as the problems you solve. The problems you solve are based on the skills you have. If you know nothing about analytics, they will not call you there, right? A CEO is a man who has developed so many skills around managing people, around the technical skills, around sales, around board management, that he is the man fit for the job. That is why they will pay them millions of dollars and they will not pay you, although you are the one doing the hard work. The reason is because he has skills that are rare, valuable. Now, how do we develop skills that are rare and valuable? The fundamental principle of this is to have skills that cross. Most people think about a career path in a linear way. So if I'm a finance guy, I need to get better at finance. So I do finance. And then, I do accounting in school. And then I graduate and then I become an accountant or I become a finance analyst. And then I do CFA. I'm just hoping that I will keep. But if you think of life that way, the problem would always be that there are many people thinking of it that way. There are so many people also planning to work harder than you to become the next CFO. So you can as well forget a linear path. What the world rewards today are paths that cross, which means I have a bit of finance, I have a bit of strategy, I understand data, I understand sales. So that when a CEO is looking at me, he's able to say, this guy worked at some point as a relationship manager. So I believe, or an account manager, or whatever, I believe he should be able to raise funds, raise capital when we need it. But this guy is also very good. He understands the business. He has done strategy before. And he's well versed with data. And he's also a good accountant, a good financial analyst. They see your years of experience and they realize that, and he has managed people, and don't forget to add that one. They begin to realize that this combination is the unique combination we have. It is not easy to become a CFO, but it's very easy to become a CFO of an AI company. Think of what I'm saying. There are very few people who understand the business model of AI companies. It's such a new industry. And this is the dynamism of the world that I'm talking about. So many things are changing. So many things are evolving. It's easy to become a CEO of an AI company. There are very few people that understand the business model. It's very, very difficult. So it's very easy to become a CFO. When I mean easy, I don't mean you can easily have it. I mean the number of people that are available for that position are very few. It's the same thing with crypto. How many people understand how cryptocurrency works? How many people understand how blockchain works? We say it, but we don't know. Now imagine you had strong understanding of that, and then you also had a strong technical background, a strong communication background. By the time you mix all this together, you become so rare and valuable, you are pursued after. The most highest paid doctors are not doctors that can do general surgery. There are those who can do general surgery but have mastered, for example, the brain. Like Ben Carson, I think, if I'm not wrong. You know, they've mastered certain areas. Now, when they now look at big problems like Ben Carson faced when those two twins were joined, the biggest problem he had to solve there was how does he separate their brain? They were sharing a single skull. How does he separate it? If he had not mastered general medicine plus specialty in neurosurgery, then he couldn't have solved that problem and become the world-renowned neurosurgeon. The same thing with Albert Einstein. In fact, if you read Einstein's story, it's funny. He was a scientist, later became a clerk, an admin clerk. As he was an admin clerk, he kept reading research papers. One day, his brain put everything he had read together, and that was how he came up with the notable theory of relativity. It has always been this way. Problems, it's not just about, saying I will think hard about the problem. Pursue challenging projects. Even your host is an example of someone who has a wonderful career and has a combination of experience, In fact, what she's doing today is not what she studied in school. She'll probably tell us more about that, right? But this is basically the idea of solving problems. You may be today on a job you don't like. Pursue challenging projects. Pursue new experiences. Keep combining what you have strategically with what you want to have. On your free time, Saturdays, spend it learning stuff. In fact, you will immediately notice dividends because one, you will get faster at your job. You will have more ideas when conversations are coming up. Ideas are basically the brain joining independent ideas to create combinations. I'll say that again. New ideas and creative ideas that solve problems are the brain joining independent thoughts to create a solution. Pursue. And many times these opportunities come to us, but we run. You may be a finance analyst and they are telling you that we are switching to this new IFRS, I think that's what it's called. There's a new reporting standard. Oh, we need someone that would handle it. It's a lot of work. But you say no. They give it to another person. That person is freely trained by the organization on the new reporting standard. Now, Shell is looking for someone who knows IFRS 9. It's you they remember. It's you that fits the role. It's that person that fits the role, that person that you ran away from. As what I just told you happened real life in my front. The person was trained by the organization on that subject. A year down the line, the person was hired by Shell, actually. And the salary was like 4 times. Pursue challenging projects. Pursue challenging opportunities. It would always set you apart. Joseph, in the Bible, he had a very interesting story. I was discussing with my wife. When I read that story, apologies for those who are not Christians, but it's a story I could learn. The road that he finally ended up on was like the country operations manager, or let's just say chief operations officer of the whole country of Egypt. Right? If you know the story, you know what I'm saying. He was second to the king of Egypt. So he had to learn to lead the country through a time of scarcity. And so, because of that singular act, Egypt became the world power in his time, because all countries kept streaming to Egypt to get food. Right? But you know where he learned it? In the challenging realm of prison. In prison, there's always scarcity. In prison, there's always limited food. He didn't go to business school to learn it. Although I'm not against that, and I'll probably do that one day. But he didn't go to a business school to learn how to manage in scarcity. He learned it when he was in prison. In fact, I keep asking my wife, where did he learn that you could store grains for up to 7 years? He must have learned it in his time in the prison. He must have learned it in his time in Potiphar's house. That's the person he worked with. So many times, extremely challenging scenarios are where we learn the greatest skills. I remember those days when I was and I would walk into 10, 11 in the night. Oh boy, I'll be complaining. I didn't know that was training me to work 10, 11 every day. Now, the reason I was able to also transition successfully is because I put myself under intense pressure at the time. And I even know that this current intense pressure I am learning about so many industries right now, it's also for something. Let me tell you something. Nigeria is an interesting place. But the man who will solve Nigeria's problem will not be someone who is just a linear man. This is the problem. We often think leadership is so easy. Nigeria is complex. When you think of, for example, the problems with our power sector, it is so intertwined. It is so intertwined. I remember I did a work on this, and I came to the conclusion that the problem is very big. Okay, you want reliable 24 hours power. Are you paying? If you don't pay, the companies cannot supply you power. They cannot generate. The distributing companies cannot distribute power to you. And then if they don't have money, because most Nigerians don't pay for power, they keep bypassing. They can't also pay for the people generating the power. If the people generating the power don't have money, they cannot pay for gas. And if the people that are supplying the gas cannot get money from the producers, they will send it abroad. This is the complexity. So how do you now solve a problem you just thought, oh, build more power, build more power? No. This problem now will take you managing Nigerians in the first place. How do you set up systems to ensure that Nigerians pay? Now, let me tell you a problem beyond Nigerians paying is the problem of Nigerians cannot even pay. I have lived in other countries for a brief period. I can tell you that our power rates are extremely low compared to the rest of the world. And even as low as it is, Nigerians cannot even pay. I've lived in countries where we were paying as close to $100, $200 a month on power. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. Now, you have poor people and you want them to pay, but they have no money to pay. But if they don't pay, they cannot generate power. Complex problems. The man who will solve Nigeria's problem is not just a man who can think deeply. He's a man that would have had multiple experiences across multiple fields. So if your plan is to be president, be thinking of how you will work in the public sector, at least for a brief period. Now think of how you will train yourself to in understanding how the public sector works, how the private sector works, because a large part of what drives the public sector is the activities of the private sector. How to manage corruption. Unique skill. In fact, managing corruption is a skill that you need clearly experiences that are extremely unique, especially since you've made up your mind not to be corrupt. Very few, in fact, I'm not sure there has been any leader that in this country that didn't play some tricks to get there. So how would you get, that's a massive problem. How would you get there clean and fair? These are the things we're saying, unique experiences. Destiny is designed to always bring these things your way, for sure. You just have to learn to take advantage of it. Request over and over again to be on projects that don't concern you. You will learn things that you need in the future. I'll close with Steve Jobs' story. he called this story connecting the dots. So he said, if you know his story, he was a dropout, right? He was registered in school. I think he was studying psychology, so I can't remember. But anyway, eventually he fell out of love with the course and he dropped out. But he hung around campus for a brief period, maybe a year or so, which means he wasn't a student, but he kept coming to campus. And he would sneak into classes that don't concern him, right? So he started attending a class on calligraphy. He said in calligraphy, that was when he learned literally the art, ART, the art of design. And he learned typesetting, a lot of things around fonts that are, appealing to the eye. It was then he started learning the consciousness of building things for the customer, which is, Apple's biggest strength today. Anyways, 1 year down the line, he stopped attending the campus. Long story, he went to India, he had different, multiple experiences. Anyways, when it was time to set up Apple, and they were now designing the user interface for the Mac, it was the experience he had during calligraphy that actually he now used to create the so-called fonts. And what we call fonts and text today, and many of the things we type with, it was within that he created. It was that experience he now used to create it. And in his own words, he said, Microsoft actually just copied everything they did in the Mac. Now, he said, looking forward, he couldn't have connected that experience to where he was going. But now, looking backward, he connected every experience. In fact, if you know his story, he was actually sacked from Apple at some point as CEO. Listen, it was then he now opened a company called Next. Next was the company that made Toy Story, right? They went into animation, 3D animations. They were the first to actually do a 3D cartoon, if you remember. Toy Story was a major hit when it came out. And they had a lot of projects, 3D animation, a lot of, I can't remember the rest, but I know 3D animation. Anyways, in a remarkable turn of events, Steve just came back to Apple as CEO. But do you know, it was that experience in Next that he used to build the user interface iPhone used to be. The touchability, icons, the Play Store, games, many of those. In fact, the software, actually, the main thing he took from Next, his time at Next, he was still the owner of Next till he died, was the user interface and what they call it, the operating system. Yes, that was the word I was looking for. The operating system that they used there. Now, think of it. He left, he was cancelled as a CEO. They brought a more experienced person, I think, from Pepsi. The company actually started going down. They realized that, okay, we need this guy back. He came back, but he didn't waste that time. He left. He used it to gain a new experience that when he came back, I think almost 3 years later, the iPhone was released and it changed the world. Think of this. He pursued a challenging project. He had always pursued it, and that was what he used to define. Same thing with Elon Musk. He pursued something no one has ever pursued. How do we make space travel reusable? Today, by the way, do you know today, even NASA, with the big budgets they have, could not have solved the problem of how to reuse rockets. It's amazing. And a private sector man solved the problem. And today, NASA now has given Elon Musk almost 70% of their contracts. Now, who would have thought that NASA, a space agency, would actually be able to outsource their services? But it's what's happening today. Because a man solved the problem. Because he pursued challenging projects. When you see the Tesla and the car, what you are seeing is a man that had learned to code, a man that had learned to build, a man that had learned to manage people over time. That's what you see in the Tesla vehicle. That's why it's so good. It's so reliable. It's so good. I'll stop here. But if there's anything I believe we should take from today, is that the world only owes you to measure The world only owes you wealth transfer, payment, value, whatever you call it, greatness, to the degree you deliver rare and valuable skills and solve rare problems. Thank you.
Okay. What amazing thoughts here. I mean, I just kept on thinking and thinking about a lot of things that was being said, and that they're so completely true. Because while you're going through life, whilst you're challenging yourself all the time to look at things differently, to solve a problem, you have no idea the level of resources, the level of skills you are keeping harming yourself with, such more that when you get to a place of demand, when you get a place of opportunity, when you get a place of demand on those skills, you're able to pull it out of you like the smooth sharp stones of David. You're able to actually, you might look like, oh, this is a gigantic problem, but those small skills that you've learned, those things that you've applied yourself with, that is what you'll be able to face your the current situation headlong with. And I think, I like the direction at which we went on talking about now how you cannot just think linearly when you're planning to be a problem solver. Excuse me. Pardon. Because there are a lot of things we need to solve in Nigeria, and most of the time problems are not linear. Even in the world, problems are never linear, and education is not just learning one thing. And that's why the story of Steve Jobs will remain robust. He had a very fantastic education. He might not have gotten a degree in something, but he applied himself to so much knowledge. He was getting the education beyond. And I think one of the things that translate to how courses are being designed in school, where you have to do some borrowed courses and all of that, is because they're trying to also apply this principle to the new form of education, because they realize that sometimes your life is you have a lot of things that's going to demand things from you, and demand skills from you that you might not necessarily have picked up from trying to be a doctor, and just reading medicine. Because when you're trying to be a doctor, there's going to be some level of emotional intelligence and handling custom help in handling your clients and their people, information management systems, all the kind of things that you're actually going to need to run an hospital apart from being a doctor. So it's life, and we have problems. And if you're going to be a solution provider, you have to be able to think, in a way that many people might not be thinking. And it's actually a skill that is learned over time of applying yourself into, in problems that might not necessarily be yours now. You mentioned something about, learn to be a CEO without the risk. And that was just amazing. Because sometimes we are in an opportunity to actually learn. I remember how I learned project execution was just taking on problems that were not mine in a workplace. That was at the early point of my career. I'm in HR. I'm not meant to be doing project execution. But when you say, oh, but you've been trying to do this for years, we've not been able to do this. We've been trying to do this project for years, we've not been able to do it. Let me try it. Let me try it. Then you apply your relationship management skills that you have. You apply your analytical skills that you have. You apply your budgeting skills that and then before you know it, boom, it's a success. And you put in a bit of your event planning skills too, and then boom, it's a success. You do 1, 2, 3, before you know it, you are mastering the art. So it's I might not actually have had any CV or any job that paid me to be a project executionist, but it's a skill I have. So it's just it's look at that problem now. It might look like, oh, I'm an accountant, and then when you see that you're trying to maybe automate your business processes, and then they call you in to be part of the committee or the clique of people that are doing that. Don't just focus on the accounts. Look at how they're optimizing operations. Look at how they're automating HR. Look at how they're automating this. It be involved in everything. You would be amazed at the number of skills you would have. And you don't know, maybe one day you have a product idea that you don't even know that you have in your mind. But because one day you were listening to the product design team, and then you remember that, true, this is how I'm going to connect the dots.
Yeah. Yeah.
And everything changes. Because right now, that information just is the light bulb moment for you to actually kickstart that idea that you had in your mind. But because you didn't have that very thin line of information that you could not, there's no how you will have gotten it in your accounting field. You know, because it's true that they don't be like it was trying to say, the magic happens when the opportunity meets preparedness. You're preparing yourself for things that you don't even know where you're going to need it, but boom, when the opportunity comes, you're able to apply it. And don't ever neglect you don't ever look down on the skills you have built up over the year. You're thinking about Joseph's story. I've thought about that story before, and I didn't ask myself the question of how he knew that grain could last 7 years, because I assumed he picked it from his family because they were farmers. He came from a family of farmers. He knew husbandry, he knew grains. That is what his family did. And all his life, in Potiphar's house, he is in a different society. But the things he saw since he was young, following them to the farm, they will chase him back. He will still follow them. He's the one that wants to go and carry food to take it to them. They will tell him, "What are you doing here? Too small." It was the curious boy that wanted to know what his brothers were doing with the plants, where they were hiding it. And then before you knew it, he was in a place where that was going to change the whole world.
Yeah. Wow.
That was going to change the whole world. And so you don't just sit at home and say, "Oh, this is just me." They're fixing your dad's car. Check it. You're young. You're asking questions. Oh, why is this like this? Why is this like this? Why is that like this? You're reading board meetings. You're reading financial reports. I was telling somebody that, see, there's nothing wrong in reading financial reports, because public listed companies, they push it out there. So just download and read it. You don't need to be an accountant. You don't need to be in the finance space. You just don't know how that is going to impact you at being a business leader in any way. And you're able to solve problems. People will think that is easy until they try to do it. Because that's the truth. It's when they try to do it, they not realize that, oh, what's happening here? I don't know how to do it. But you don't even know how much you've been able to do by applying yourself into different problems and learning, in a robust way. I think this problem solving skills are something that we learn, over time, but is an attitude. I think it's more of an attitude. From all of our discussion and the examples, that he brought to shore, it looks to me like it's like an attitude. These people have an attitude of learning and being inquisitive to know. Because they were constantly involved in information, in knowledge, and whenever there comes a problem, they apply themselves, and they got better at it, So, it's been a wonderful chat. We're going to, maybe probably ask some questions and answer them now, and then we'll be able to draw the curtain on this meeting. So I have a very interesting question. It says that, how do I combine being an employee at a job that I'm not entirely interested in and pursuing a dream of a solution I want to build, but I don't have the resources for? How do I
yeah, please ask it again.
How do I combine being an employee at a job I'm not particularly interested in to building a solution that I do not have the resources for.
So, as you said, attitude is everything. First thing, before you even think of the solution, is to make the most of what you are now. Just as you said, no experience is wasted. Just give it time. It's just that it's not speaking yet. The job you don't like to speak one day. But also, you can tactically start making steps. And there are 3 things I have seen that really help. Over time, I've learned this. One is keep yourself surrounded with information about the dream career you want. And this involves like doing courses. This is the role of courses. Courses will not give you experience, but they would make it more targeted for you to be conversational when the opportunity comes. They would give you the opportunity to at least have, it's almost like building blocks. Like nothing will ever replace experience, no amount of courses, I assure you. However, you are better off than the person who didn't do the course, for sure. You have the building blocks and you will learn, you will grow a lot faster. But the second thing is also to surround yourself with people that are where you want to be. Particularly if what you are saying is entrepreneurship. A large part of learning is from informal conversations. I have learned that, in fact, learning that is combined with inspiration, you never forget. When you're learning out of duty, your mind is, the brain has a system to say interesting, not interesting. And so it filters what you should forget based on that. But if, let's say the CEO of Flutterwave or the CEO of Paystack, you visit them, I'm just saying, I don't know if this person has that idea, but has that connection. But let's say you visit those kind of people and you're talking, you hear them talking about business. You're able to learn in 1 hour what you would have not learned in 10 years. That way, you are gaining subtle experience you don't even know it's experience. So it's almost like experience by association. And then the final way is to keep looking for opportunities. I always say that interviews are actually, there is an experience for interviews. By the time you do 2, 3 interviews in a sector, by the 3rd one, you'll be able to, even if you've not done the job, you'll be able to answer the question. Right?
If you come back to do your research.
If you come back to do your research, yes. So, but make the most of what, in fact, if there is a part of your current role, your current company that has what you want to do. Let's say you want to build a tech firm and there's a tech department, start liaising with those people. Start talking with those people. Start asking questions. Let me tell you something very funny. I've corrected mechanics at least 4 times. They will say this is the problem. I will say this is not the problem. You know why? Because previous times when they were repairing my previous cars, I was asking them questions. What causes this thing? Why is this thing doing like what? Even there was one, the last one that happened was about alignment. The guy, not alignment. My steering was bending to one side. He kept arguing with me that it was alignment. I said, it's not alignment. I have experienced this problem before and I've solved it before, and this was the cause. We got to where they do wheel balancing, and that was the same thing the people told me. It's interesting. I'm not a mechanic, but at least I know enough by asking questions. I'm just trying to tell you the power of asking questions, right? So if there are those people in your current company, start liaising with them, start talking with them, start asking them what they do, understand the software, how do they build it, keep asking those questions. And then strategically do courses. And, pursue your interest. If you want to build a payment, let's say a payment app, learn design. You may not know, but the day you become CEO and your tech people are trying to go you, any leader of a tech company knows how IT folks always try and confuse you with terms and terminology. I worked under a CEO that, true life story, the CEO I worked with, he did accounting, but he was called upon once to briefly lead the technology company. He wanted to reject of course, the bank I worked for has an in-house technology company. He refused, he wanted to refuse it, but he told himself that if he's going to be CEO one day, he needs that experience. So he got deep and dirty. He said he would be sleeping in the office. He's the head though. He's trying to understand what the IT people are doing. He didn't know that one day he would become the MD of a Nigerian bank. And I can tell you for a fact, I've been in those meetings. Once they start talking IT, all of us, the rest of us in the meeting zone out. Him and IT will be conversing like this was a technical call. And many times he caught them in their tracks. I'm just saying that this was a man learning from his own company. He was within the same company. And so we will always have those opportunities. Whatever you want to build probably exists in where you are in the form. Just take advantage of it. Build courses, build experiences with the people you want to be like, and then pursue opportunities. Now is the time to start learning how to speak to investors, look for grants, not when you start the company. Now, you should be learning how to do those things. I hope that was able to answer the question.
I think you did. I like the fact that you really touched on the 3 points. Yeah, because first, you have the opportunity now, whatever it is that's happening in your company, there's somewhere a ray of it that speaks to what you're doing. So yes, apply yourself there. Secondly is relationships. So make sure that you're influenced around the people going to where you want to go or who are already doing what you want to do, and associate yourself correctly. So that it inspires you more, and you're constantly learning by observation and association. Then the third one is to go for the opportunities, like pursue it, and learn. I like that when you have an idea, even if you don't know anything about what next step to take, you can learn about it. We're such a privileged world now that even if you want to go into an industry that it looks like I don't know nothing about this thing, you can start with your research on your phone and start to learn about it. And if you read 3-4 articles about something every day, in a year, you will have spent more than about maybe at least 100 hours studying that thing. You're already becoming a diploma holder in that thing. Because the truth is, you actually are investing a lot of information. And the time comes when you are given the opportunity to express that information into thought or into application. You will not be a novice. Even if you will make mistake, you will make the correct kind of mistakes. Now, even in your journey, there are wrong mistakes and there are correct mistakes. Sorry to put it that way. But you will make the correct mistakes that would help you, learn on those mistakes and come above it and then be able to get your result. But you will be in the right track. So there's always a way, for the person that asked the question, there is always a way. And you look like you're in a job you're not interested in. It might actually be your mind, like, because you are dissatisfied, you are not seeing some things that you would enjoy in that job, because a lot of things happens from our minds. The role you are in now, you're looking at, maybe you're not happy about the job you have to do. Maybe it's not as engaging as you want. But the truth is that the problem you hope to solve in that solution that you have in mind, the current company you have might have that same problem. Why don't you practice with them? Practice with that company. And you will not even use your money. Let's say that you want this, you have a solution to maybe do a tool or do something or do a hobby, provide this or do maybe even that. I don't know. I don't want to put an example because I don't know what an example is. But where you are now, the problem might not be on your desk. But as long as that problem is applicable in that company that you are now, apply yourself to solving that problem first. They might pay you, they might not pay you. Better if they're not even paying you, so that you know if you are really interested in that problem.
I have a friend who applied what you just said. Literally, he was a salesperson in the bank I was working. He didn't like the job, but he made the most of it. And then he started learning. He wanted to move to Treasury. The Treasury department. He did the certification. He started interacting with the guys, asking them questions. Once they were just through there, find out what they are doing. By the time another bank interviewed him, he was like, "Yeah, done the job. Go." And they employed him. And he's doing well today. He's even heading a department now. This is a job he didn't like to job he now wants.
Exactly. So because he was already practicing with the company he was in, even
Yeah.
though he was maybe pro bono or maybe he was an extra person that they'll be like,
Yeah.
too much. But he was practicing. And let me tell you that you're owner of your story. You don't need to be able to explain everything to everyone, But one thing you must remain is focused. And then you must apply yourself. You must apply yourself as much as possible because you're like a canvas, you're like a painting. And the beautiful thing that is going to come out of it is how much of the the luxury of designs that you are putting over and over. Most of the time, if you go to an artwork and you look at an art and some abstract paints, and you just look at the dexterity of the artist's mind, and it just wows you. How what they're trying to a picture is saying like 17 things. The Mona Lisa painting today is because people are like, oh, we don't know if he's smiling, if she's frowning, if she's sarcastic. Everybody have different interpretation, and that made it a wow painting. Because that is just how you could be. So as you're attacking life, you are actually looking at all the problems you're facing, and you're trying to solve it. You are getting all the information. You have some ideas in your mind. Maybe you've not even been able to grasp how it's going to work, but you're still constantly looking at it. One day you're going to get to a point where everything will make up. And then you'll be able to, make the most of that information. We see it over and over again and over and over again, even with the great inventors and all of that. And it's been a wonderful chat. We've passed our time. I think the second question has been answered. It's very much unlike the topic itself. So I want you to listen over this conversation again and again and again and again. Thank you. This is like one of the shortest 1 hour we've had on this call. Thank you so much for coming in. It's such wonderful to have you spending this time. I will look forward to having you again on a bigger level. Thank you and have a beautiful, beautiful weekend.
You too. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you so much if you've been listening to this chat. I'm glad to bring you amazing content every month. Hopefully with time, we would do it a lot more in a month. But for this year, it's going to be every month. And if you keep listening in, the transformation you're going to have in your mind is going to be remarkable at the end of the year. So I want you to just continue to listen in. Please share this content with your friends, with the people you love, with your mentors, with your mentees. And most importantly, please subscribe to this channel. I want to be encouraged for doing this. And you can follow up all of our speakers on their social media pages and listen to any of the other contents that they have. Or even if you feel like you really, really resonate with one person and you want them to be in your sphere of influence and you want them to be a mentor to you or something, you can reach out to me. All right. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you have a beautiful Saturday and enjoy the wonderful weekend that is ahead if you're already in Saturday. Thank you. I'll see you next month again for another amazing session. I'm sure you're going to have we have a wonderful speaker coming in next month. She is in career as well. And I don't want to spill the beans, so just watch out. All right. Have a beautiful, beautiful day. Bye-bye.